What's up? This is Richie from the Very Wild YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be taking apart this Shimano SLX MGL 71HG. This reel is bad, boy. I have the XG, and I've taken that apart before, and I just received this brand new HG, and I'm going to rip that apart and tune it up real fast. Voila. There she is, right there. So I'm going to tear it down, do my usual assortment of stuff, grease, oil, get it dialed in the way I like to have them. And yeah, if you're trying to take yours apart at home, you can follow along and hopefully it'll help you out. Let's get into it. All right, man, I love these reels. Really, really awesome reels. This thing's free spooling just insane already, so you know I'm not gonna have to do much to it, but when they come from the factory, you know they have some grease and stuff on the bearings sometimes, and certain things like that I like to get rid of. So all right, so let's get started. First thing, we're gonna rip this handle off, starting with this little screw here on the cap. I'm gonna start with a flathead screwdriver to bust all these loose, because when they first come, they got Loctite. Some of them, they're really in there good. They've never been broken loose. So I always say start with a little flathead, excuse me, instead of a Phillips, because you don't want to strip them. And then once you bust them loose, you can always switch over to a Phillips head to help get them out. Might need a little trick here. You can use like a guitar pick, or sometimes you buy little toolkits and they come with these oversized guitar picks that help with taking apart little things like this. 100 degrees outside, so you're going to be hearing that air conditioner kick on every once in a while to keep me cool in here, boy. Having a heat wave here. There it is. See ya. Little cover. I'm just going to work my way down, line everything up. 10 millimeter, I presume. Loosen to the right, because it is a left-handed reel. Just gentle pressure, just like that. Little nut there. Keeping a little pressure, because there's a spring. You're gonna have a little bit of a washer probably stuck on the back of the handle, so be aware of that. That's what helps make your drag click. As well as on the inside here, there's a little pin and spring that sits right in there. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that. I'm not gonna take it out. I've done it in plenty of other videos, like the BFS reel and the other MGL. So, but this little washer here with the little circle pattern on there sticks to the back of that handle almost every time. Almost every time. So we're just going to place that back down on this little star drag here with the circle side facing down. Just going to wipe off the little grease that's on there. That's a small little handle, man. I may upgrade that. Next up is the spring. Then we got a little nut here, and there'll be a washer and a couple of spacer washers underneath that. Just be aware that the nut has a groove in it for the spring to lay in there, and that always faces up. I'm going to loosen to the right. And underneath there'll be a washer stuck to this with the copper side facing down, and a more gray side that's stuck to the nut. So I'm just going to leave in that in the correct position. Next up, we got our spring tensioners washers. Rip those off. Now these are always in the opposite position, like back-to-back parentheses almost, if that makes sense. But it just creates a little space in there and gives you a little spring action to your star drag. All right, next up, I'm going to rip this spool out real fast. Open and close. Damn, did this come with all the brakes on? This reel came with all the brakes on. Interesting. Come on, baby. Get out of there. All right. So, just so when I get fishing later, I'm taking 2 of these brakes off. 1, 2. Clipped in, they're off, and pulled out, they're on. So we'll start with 2 on, 2 off when I get out there. All right, so since we're brand new from the factory, I'm expecting a little grease to be in these bearings. I don't really see any in here, which is interesting. Little spring clip in there. I'm gonna just take out real fast. You'll get a better view when I do this one over here. So sorry about this view. This is a little difficult with this door on here. I'm just gonna stick my finger over this so it doesn't go flying. It's not gonna cut it. Pull that out of there. You can see how small and dainty those are, so just be careful. There's my little bearing remover tool. Get this out of here real fast. It's just like a little hook, you know, little wire hook, and you just scoop it in through the middle of the bearing, and then it just hooks right onto it, pulls it right out. All right, now this reel is actually fresh from Japan. It's the JDM version, and you know, it's the same reel as you're gonna get in America, but they have a little bit different bearings over there, and for some reason their bearings are sick. They're just better than the ones that we get in the American versions. That's my opinion anyway. They seem to really crank. So I'm just gonna dry up any grease that came on it real fast, but it's in pretty good shape. So it's not gonna need too much loving. Little oil on here. Lucas Reel Oil. I'll link it in the description along with everything else I'm using here. Drag grease, blue grease, the mat, all my little tools and stuff. So you can grab some of your own if you're looking for that. Yeah, dude. These bearings are already money. One little drop on the other side, which is probably unnecessary, but I'm doing it anyway. Beautiful. Fire that bad boy back in. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see that, but just pushing it right down into there. Get this spring clip back in. I'm gonna move on. These spring clips can be a little bit of a pain. You just get one side in and start prying in the other side, and it usually works out pretty well. This side is just it's just tough with the door hinge there. It's just a little annoying. There she is. All right, that bearing is all good. A little bit of grease up here. I'm just going to take off, and that's all locked into place. Nice. Moving on. Close the door back up. Just keep cruising. Next up, I'm taking this tension knob off. Just clean it up a little bit. It's got a little messy in here. To the left. Inside there you got a little spacer that sticks to the back. It's like a square shape. but it never ever falls out in my experience, so just leave it where it is. All good. Next bearing is right here. I'm gonna pop that out real fast. I'm gonna use this. And just keep your finger over it, like I said earlier, so it doesn't go flying. And they do. She is right there. Bearing remover. Little hook on the inside. Pull straight up. And sometimes you might have to rotate it around a little bit. These things are tight squeeze, man. So just take your time, and eventually they pop out on you. There it is. Dry this one off a little bit. Yeah, man, you can even see it on these bearings. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but you see how much darker the bearing is than usual? JDM bearings, man, telling you, they're just different. And man, are they smooth. Clean out any grease that's in here. Little housing. Cool. A little drink of oil. A little flip. Money. Put that back in. Get that nice little click. And then we will throw this little spring clip back in here. Look at these things flying all over the place. I'm trying to go fast on this one. Perfect. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but you just get it to click down in there. Sweet. All right, bearing number 2, all good. Now let's get this case off and see what we're doing here. So this reel has 2 screws along the top, 2 screws on the bottom, and they should all be the same size except for maybe the one on the bottom of the ramp there. Flathead, get a really good lock up. You don't want to strip these, man. They're a pain in the butt to replace if you strip them. There's one. I'm gonna just break them loose and then switch over to the Phillips. Where are you? You can hear that little crack, can't you? That's it. It was the first time they were ever broke loose. Let's see, now I just need a Phillips head real fast that's gonna match this size. That should do it. There's one. Put that on the top. Remember that one was on the top. This one was a little below it, so just on this little grid up here on this mat, I just put it in that order all the time, just out of habit. And then, you know what, I'll put it a little higher as the top, and then these will be lower to represent the bottom. This is a long one, isn't it? A little bit. All right, baby, and away we go. This might need a little bit of love. Come on. Get off of there. Come on, dude. Sometimes when these are brand new, they just, there it is, need a little encouragement. All right, straight off, bone dry, which is insane. I'm gonna pull out this roller clutch inner tube, put that there. There's no washer on it. And then you got your one-way roller bearing here, and I'm just gonna get the oil, I'm sorry, the grease off it, because it's friction driven. So you don't want to oil or grease that. It's so funny, man. I say the same things every single time I do one of these reel videos, so if you watch them all, you're probably like, yeah, I know, you say it every time. But for the people that are watching for the first time, I just try to say it so they can learn too. All right, so that's all cleaned up. Little roller clutch inner tube, quick little wipe off. Send it right to the middle here as well, and we're good to go there. Springs on the yoke, pull those off. Grab the main gear, pull straight up, gently. All right, wow, whole thing came off. That's weird, usually it just separates. So here's a little magic trick. There you go, sleight of hand. Main gear, first drag washer, and a little bit of cog here, little clutch thing. Man, there's some sticky grease on here, so they actually did put a little drag grease. I'm just gonna wipe all that stuff off, use my own. There's a flat side and a more rounded side. The flat side was facing up with the drag washer attached on the top. Dry that off. This thing was actually greased pretty good there. I'm impressed. A lot of times they're just bone dry. These teeth are definitely bone dry. All they did was hook up the drag a little bit. All right. So under this little shell here is your main drag washer. And this is domed, this part, so you know dome side faces down to put pressure on this thin drag washer there. Wipe this off. Get this out of here. Wipe this off. Just kind of patting it, you know, just pat it dry. A little squeeze here and there, a little rub. And there's definitely a little carbon fiber coming off it because it's brand spanking. Brand spanking. I'm gonna wipe out here. Cool. All right, let's hook these drag washers up, keep cruising. Cal's drag grease, linked in the description, faux show. I'm just gonna take a little dab and we're just gonna work it in to these washers. Nothing crazy, man. Barely even wanna see it on there. It'll soak it up like a sponge. And if it's not soaking it up, you got too much on there and you just want to wipe off the excess with like a paper towel. Just like wipe your fingers off and keep moving. All right, that one's cool. Send it. That's it right in there. Small drag washer, same thing, little dab. Work that around. You're gonna notice some black carbon fiber coming off on your hands when they're brand new like this. I mean, you can see how little is on there. You can't see like any, like, you know, chunky residue or anything like that. It's just a really light, clean coating where the thing is shiny, but you don't see globs of it everywhere. All right, all good. That's it for the drag grease. A little sip of coffee here, if you don't mind. Wow, coffee's actually really good when it's like starting to cool off a little bit and not absolutely red hot, burn your mouth off. Really good. Dome side down. Move off to the side. And let's move on over here. Pinion gear, yoke, okay? Pink part is the yoke. We're gonna grab the pinion gear and pull straight up. Okay, this thing has a little bit of grease here and there on it. Nothing crazy. I'm going to just clean off any grease that's on this main bearing here because I just want oil in there. And that's where your main bearing is. Right down in that hole there. And if you want to replace that someday, you're gonna have to pull these two screws and this whole contraption comes off and it's a little nuts. So be prepared for that if you ever try to dig in there. But this is as far as you need to go for just oiling and basic real maintenance. If you don't have to replace that, don't even bother with those screws. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Just drop a little oil in there on that main bearing, right off to the side of the black so it catches on the bearing. You can see that. A little bit there, a little bit there. Work that in. And I'm just gonna give it just a tiny little bit more because this is your main bearing here, and I just want to make sure that's nice and juicy. All right, sweetness. Gonna just dry off some of their factory grease right here. Probably gonna add a little bit of my own. No biggie though. Now underneath here, there's another bearing down underneath this, I presume. So I think anyway, there usually is on all these. So instead of taking this whole shaft off and everything like that, I'm just gonna slip this oil needle underneath this gear and let that oil make it down into that bearing eventually. You're never gonna be able to see that, I'm sorry, but underneath this bigger little cog here, you slip your oil needle down in there and that oil will get into that bearing that's underneath it eventually. All right. Now we're gonna dip into our pen real grease. Grab our paintbrush. That smells good. And we're just gonna give a tiny little bit, tiny, just on some things in here. We're gonna hit these ramps on the side here where your yoke sits. So you can see that. We're gonna hit this little area here where the button clicks up and down. Spring. Very little, man. Very light coating. Just kind of hitting in there where that slides back and forth. Love here. You can drop oil all underneath there too if you want, but I usually just go with a little grease. It's usually gets it done for me. Tiny little bit on these wheels where they had their stock stuff. But they're, you know, they're plastic, so it's a little different than metal, but I still put a tiny bit on there just to keep it a little bit lubricated, you know what I mean? Beautiful. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna hook up our pinion gear with some grease, our main gear with some grease, and we're gonna slap this thing back together. So pinion gear, pulling off the yoke. And we're just gonna tap a tiny little bit of grease into these teeth right here. Nothing crazy. And this thing like sits down in the bearing, you know, once you put it in, so I don't really like getting grease all over this. I just like these top teeth. And then we're just gonna give this yoke a little wipe off. And once again, just so you know, you're putting the yoke right side up. The ramps on the underside of it match up with the ramps on both sides of this little black piece here. So that's how you know it's not upside down. If it was upside down, those ramps would not match up. It just wouldn't look right. They'll be hitting there. It just doesn't fly. So you want to make sure that that thing's right side up, so that'll fit perfect straight down and fit those ramps. You know what I'm saying? But first we got to put the pinion gear in there, so let's do that. I don't know if that's going to balance for me, but you know what? I will put the tiniest, it's going to get all over it anyway. And I'm just going to put the tiniest little glaze on this yoke. Tiny, 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 tiny. Pinion gear now, it's going to fit right in the middle. Just like that. And then we're just going to go right over those posts and drop her straight in. Line it up, boy. Just got to get that pinion to sit. Boom. Now we're moving. Next up, main gear. Just going to pinch it so I don't drop the little top off and the drag washer come flying out of it. Just going to take some grease. I'm going to pat like 3/4 of the teeth here. Just pat, pat, pat. Still not enough there. There we go. So you pat, and then you take your finger and you mush it in. Try to keep it off the bottom, try to keep it off the top. Just get those teeth. And you don't need to go absolutely insane getting all of them, because it's just gonna spread, you know, when you start reeling in. So I'll do like half of the gear like that, and then I'll switch around like this where it's real dry, and I'll just do a tiny little bit more. But nothing insane. Tap, tap, tap. Little swipe. And just mush it into those teeth. Okay. That should be good. There we go. Just a little, you know, room left, so you're not completely overflowing it when you put it back on. Right, so that's taken care of. Let's get this little cog piece back on that is keyed to a square, flat side facing up. Gonna slide that down, make sure it sits all the way down. See, if you just throw it on like that, no go. You gotta slowly rotate it until it sits just like that. Flush. Drag washer. Sits on top. Main gear. Top is keyed, so just kind of align it up before you even start. Slide her down. And it's going to need to pass that pinion gear, which it did. Sometimes you got to pull back on the pinion gear slightly, but this one just slid in like butter. So now I'm going to rotate this, and you're going to see that grease start passing on. Hopefully this light is good enough. You're going to see the grease pass on to the pinion gear. Nice. That's a healthy amount. If you're getting too much of a buildup behind that pinion gear, then you put too much on. You should wipe some off and keep it clean, but you know, a little bit is okay. You just don't want it sloppy, man, because, you know, once you hit a certain point, there's really nothing that grease is doing but just slowing stuff down, basically. You know, it's just adding unnecessary weight and stuff to your reel. I mean, it's just sloppy. So, a little sip of coffee. Oh, that's good. All right, so we're pretty money right now. I'm gonna put the tiniest on these posts here. Get my springs back on. 1, 2. And then we take our little roller clutch inner tube with those forks right there, those 2 little teeth. We're going to match those up into the teeth here. Make sure that's all the way down. Money. And we're ready to put this cover back on. Always just take a breath. Any parts laying around, you got your springs on. You got your roller clutch inner tube in. Everything's oiled, everything's greased. Pretty. All right, get her on. Nice and gentle. Might need a little bit of a shimmy with those springs on there. See how that big gap is right there? You know, you gotta make sure that's all flush. There it is. It's pretty close. It's not completely flush though. Now it is. Hear that little snap into place? That's what you want to hear. All right, let's get these bolts back in. Bolts, screws. And I have them all lined up in the right place, so that should help us out. Long one down this ramp here. Okay, this thing is a little small, this bit for these, so I gotta be careful not to strip. Might switch over to the flathead just to tighten them up. Come on, get in there, you. God, these things are so tiny, man. It's insane. Oh, come on, brother. Nice. Just let me flip over to the flathead real fast, and I'm just going to tighten these up completely without stripping them. Tight is tight, you know what I'm saying? All right, we're cool. Beautiful. Now we are going to throw our tension back on, tension cap to the right. Is that on there flush? I felt weird. Why'd that feel weird? Probably put a little bit of grease on the outside of that if I wanted to. Yeah, we're cool. Now let's start getting this handle back on. spacer, damn, I struggle every time. Spacer washers, spacer. I always gotta say spacer washers. Get those on in the exact order we took them off, which are opposite each other. And you're just gonna shimmy them. Ooh, I lost one. So now I have to make sure that they're back to back. That's how quick it happens, man. You drop something and you lose the place, and that's just what happens. So I'm just gonna make sure that these are right. And I got them on. As long as they're like back to back, you know, it just gives you the right amount of tension. Okay, we got our nut with the copper side facing down and the groove side facing up for the spring to fit in there. We're gonna get it on nice, tighten to the left. And you don't have to tighten this down with a tool or anything like that. You're just snugging her up. And you can hold on to the shaft here if you want and just get a little bit tighter, but when your drag star starts spinning down with your drag, that's what's going to tighten that up more. Groove side up for the spring. Perfect. Then we're going to get our drag star. And just be careful. Remember that little pin in there, so just keep your finger on top of this. Do not launch that little pin that's underneath out, because you will regret it. So just keep pressure and just slide down as long as that's lined up. And then we're gonna just move over to the balancing act of getting this handle on, like that. And I just spread the fingers out a little bit just to balance. And get our cap on to the right. I'm sorry, to the left is tightening. It's really a balancing act. There we go. Sometimes just getting it started is just the hardest. All right. And we're gonna just tighten up a bit. Not too much though. Just gonna give it a couple turns so it's solid. And then I'm just gonna make sure drag's clicking, seems to be tightening, seems to be loosening. You know, always just make sure everything's cool before you go tightening that up all the way. Now, once again, the little trick here, to get this cover to sit flush on here, you need this nut to be in the perfect position. So I'm gonna tighten it until it starts getting actually tight, which was, geez, right there. And then I'm gonna try to get one of the points on this nut to face that little hole right there, and that's usually what helps ensure that your cap is gonna fit. I don't think I'm really close here actually, so let's see. I think it's way off. And it is. See that big gap? Can you see that there? There's like a big gap in between this cover. So you can't roll it out there like that. You gotta either tighten it more or loosen it more. And I guess I can tighten it more. Let's try that. Nope, still ain't right. I just really over tightened it, I think. It's usually when you get that point right at that hole there, but it's just weird because it seems pretty loose to me in that position, so that's why there it is. It's weird, man. It's got to be in the exact position. Throw our little screw back on. Come on, tiny little bugger. Just make sure you get a really nice lock up before you go going real tight. All right, spool back in. Actually, I'm just gonna take the tiniest little something right here and just hit this little spring area of the door. Just tiny. See in there, just to keep any crap out. That's all. Send it. Get in there all the way. There it is. Close up the door. All right, almost there, man. Little oil on the worm gear. Put a little on that side. Put a little on that side. Run that through. And then last but not least, I just put a tiny little bit of oil right on the connection of these knobs here. Some reels have bearings, some don't, but I always just put a little oil there and then just kind of use gravity to let it drip down a second. Some of them spin way better than that, but this is also brand new, so. All right, I think that just about does it, kids. Hopefully that was a little pretty quick about it. Got some oil shooting around everywhere. These are great reels, man. Just clean off any excess that's flying out. Ooh. Got oil everywhere. And just work it all in, you know? Take it over to the couch, watch some TV. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Pretty sweet. Damn, it's getting smoother and smoother just 20 seconds later. That is so sick. Awesome, man. All right, we're golden. This thing is money. Damn. God, I love that. I love it. That's awesome. Still going. Very nice. All right. And work this button in a little bit too when you're over on the couch. Just break it in, man. Take some time. These things are brand new out of the factory. Take some time. Sweet reel, dude. Sweet reel. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, you know, let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions or anything like that, if you have any other Shimano reels that you want me to take apart, I might, odds are I might have one and I could take it apart. But yeah, I hope these videos help you out, man. They're fun, dude. They're fun for me to do because I'm always doing this stuff anyway. So, you know, it's just fun to show people how I like to hook these things up. I mean, it's not too complicated, you know, but if you're just learning or, you know, looking to get into it, whatever, I hope these videos help you out. It's good stuff. Fun, man. Fun. I love getting them, you know, and getting them to peak performance. That's just so cool to me. I mean, this thing was fine, more than fine out of the box, but just what I did right there, I mean, I could see a difference already. This thing's free spooling like an animal. So I'm stoked up. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like. And if you're into this sort of thing, don't forget to hit subscribe. We put a new video out every single week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Later. If you want to see more videos just like this one, be sure to check out the rest of the Where We Wild YouTube channel, where we post a brand new video every week. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon so
so you get notified whenever we post a new adventure. Thanks for watching.
See ya.